There's three archetypes that I like to break this down into. And I'll start with the first one, which everyone knows this guy. This guy is the good guy. The good guy, Mr. Nice Guy. He's great. He does everything he can to avoid conflict. He avoids conflict in order to feel loved. And then there's the performer who links self-worth to results. You know, he's not worthy if he's not doing the thing and showing results. And then there's the fixer who takes responsibility for others to feel needed.
Ignition sequence start. 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Today I'm here hoping to be able to interview Joey Wilder. He is the creator, inventor, founder, you name it.
We have Joey Wilder, first time coming on the show.
But at that moment, I had a choice to make. I either hit this while it's hot, while people are hyped up about it, or kind of let it simmer out. And I've been told by many great mentors that it's all about the timing of things.
In the identity collapse, most men are built on survival and not in a state of being sovereign. And as I was saying, before you can actually lead anyone, meaning a business, a relationship, a movement, you have to reclaim the right to lead yourself. Most men are in this state of unconsciously performing for approval. They're hiding behind outdated personas. They're hiding behind positions, careers, titles, or they're just reacting to old pain. And if you don't begin to collapse that identity that's been built on this place of crisis and survival, it will eventually sabotage some of the most beautiful things in your life. Now, I want to expand into what I call the survival identity model. Now, when it comes to the survival identity model, this is the place where men are in this place where they're living inside an identity that they didn't choose. It was built as a response to fear, pain, or pressure. When men are in this place, there's 4 areas that I break this down into. And I'm going to start with number 1, which is wound. And this is a moment of pain that plants fear. And this usually happens from failure, rejection, or abandonment. And after that, there's adaptation. And this is a role that you've adopted to protect yourself. Maybe you decided to be the good guy. You wanted to be the achiever, the pleaser, or the controller. And then there's performance. This is the role that gets rewarded. So it becomes a habit. And then there's adoption. You internalize it and it becomes your identity. Sometimes it's worn automatically. Other times it's worn unconsciously. There's 3 archetypes that I like to break this down into. And I'll start with the first one, which everyone knows this guy. This guy is the good guy. The good guy, Mr. Nice Guy. He's great. He does everything he can to avoid conflict. He avoids conflict in order to feel loved. And then there's the performer who links self-worth to results. You know, he's not worthy if he's not doing the thing and showing results. And then there's the fixer who takes responsibility for others to feel needed. Now, I want you to ask yourselves, if you're listening to this, which of these roles have you played? What did it protect you from? And where is it now limiting you? The identity formed in pain cannot be the one that leads you to your future. I'm going to give you this exercise to do. I want you to draw a circle, and I want you to put 4 notches evenly spaced around it. And you're going to write wound, roll, reward, repeat. Now you're going to write your own loop out. Now here's the example. Dad left. I became the achiever. I got praise. Now I don't know who I am without being successful. You take the wound. You show what it rewarded you, or you take the wound. You show what role it led you into, the reward, and now what you repeat. Having clarity and seeing the polarization of what your wound is controlling and where you want to be will enable you to begin to collapse that identity. Now, I want to parlay into the next section, which is called initiating the collapse. Survival roles eventually become cages that you choose to live within. Becoming sovereign begins when you choose who you are without asking for permission. Now, I want to share some survival identity signals, kind of how to know if you are in this state of survival. This is when you usually will hesitate to speak unless it's safe. You apologize for your power. You self-doubt when no one reaffirms you, and you feel responsible for how others feel. You know, if your girlfriend or your wife is sad, suddenly, like, you're sad too. They're having a bad day, you're having a bad day. I want to take you through this exercise called the identity audit. Now, I want you to write out, using the frame, I've been a man who, and then you list 3 to 5 traits that are tied to fear or performance. And after that, right, I now choose to become a man who, declare the traits that are tied to being sovereign and free. And this declaration could sound something like, I am done negotiating my identity with past pain. I now choose who I am becoming. Because you have a choice. You always have, and you always will. No one is holding a gun to your head, forcing you to exist in the place that you're in longer than you are choosing to. And I believe many times people forget that. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine the other day, and I feel for individuals when they're going through tough times. However, my patience dwindles when they've gotten feedback on the thing and profusely vent around the same thing. When you choose to exist in the reality you're in and you know it's not a good place to be, that's your choice. I can only have empathy so far for someone that chooses to exist in something longer than they need to. Because you always have a choice. Your life is a byproduct of choices that you have made. No one is forcing you to do the things you're doing. But in this, if you are done negotiating your identity with your past pain, you now get to choose who you're becoming. And I want to move into the next section, which is called becoming sovereign. Being sovereign is a daily task. It's chosen. It's not granted. It's built. It's not inherited. Now, in this, there's 4 areas that I break this down into. Choice over conditioning, which is when you choose your identity by decision, not by default. And then there's mission over mood. This means you show up regardless of the emotion. And there's presence over performance. This means you're willing to lead without applause. You do the things because that is who you are. And then they choose clarity over chaos, which means you begin to move with vision, not validation. Maybe this sounds something like, I am no longer a man performing for safety. I am a man forging for legacy. I want each guy to write out one trait that you're ready to retire and one trait that you're going to replace it with. Now, this is going to be called your forged identity statement. Now, it can start like this. I lead as a man who blank, even when blank, because blank. The example, I lead as a man who speaks directly, even when it's uncomfortable, because legacy lives in truth. When you begin to shift into becoming sovereign, you can start to make choice over conditioning, meaning you start to make decisions based off what your choice is, not what you've been conditioned to do or not do. When you start to step into your mission over mood, you show up regardless of how you're feeling. Having a bad day, you're still going to get the things done, but be present with how you feel. You're still going to stay steadfast towards the mission that you're on, even if the world is burning down around you. And when you choose presence over performance, you're not doing things for validation of others. Some guys need to get used to the fact that there's not always going to be people ready to applaud you for everything that you do. And many men don't recognize that until later on. When you can do things without the expectation of applause or any type of compliments, affirmations, anything, you can begin to actually move with presence and have your mission above your mood. And the final one, the clarity over chaos, it is such a peaceful place to be in when you are moving with vision and not moving with every inclination of validation that you're waiting to receive. Because validation doesn't always come. And sometimes it's retroactive. It takes years to come. And I want to give you this exercise that is called the before and after letter. Now, in this, we're going to collapse the outdated self by writing him out. We're going to step into becoming sovereign by declaring your forged self in writing. Now, you're going to write 2 letters, which is going to be the before letter. And guys, make it short and sweet. Literally, shortest letter ever. 5 sentences. Brevity. Right? The before letter, I want you to share about your past self. Now, I want you to share about the wounds that you've experienced, the things that you've brought into relationships that made it difficult maybe to connect, to trust, to be, to love. Self-awareness is an interesting thing because the more self-aware that you get and become, the more that you are aware of things, of people, the more you notice. And I had someone ask me this recently, I feel like the more I work on myself, the more I notice how some people just don't show up in the way that I desire. And I started to ask them more about this, and they were sharing it in a somber way. And trust me, I get it. I get it. And she had begun to ask me, she said, what do you do with that? Because I can imagine the things you hear and the conversations you have. What do you do with it? I said, do you really want my answer to that? Because it's not going to be as insightful as you may think. And she said, yeah, I'd love to hear it. And I shared with her that self-awareness is a thing that it's a dichotomy that you walk in. It's cascading a fine line in what feels like right and wrong. It's one of those things that becomes a tonic that you choke down daily. In recognizing that some people can only meet you as deeply as they've met themselves, and some people will never even get to that place. And when you recognize this, you get to make the choice of, do I love myself more than I love the potentiality of this person becoming who I wish they truly were? sometimes you recognize people just won't ever get there, and you get to love them as they are. But when you step into claiming the future, I want you to think about this, and I'm going to expand on the letter in a moment, but I want to talk about claiming the future. A sovereign identity must have a forward mission, not just a backward reaction. I'm going to make this real for all of you right now. If your daughter or son were to describe you 10 years from now, what identities do you hope that they name? I asked a gentleman that the other day. His daughter's 10, and I was having lunch with him in his home, and he has a beautiful home out in Rancho Santa Fe. Like, beautiful, beautiful home. Honestly, one of the most beautiful homes I've ever been in. And when he hears this, man, your wife did an incredible job on that home. But I told him I was going to share this story, and I'm not going to share any context or details of who he is. But his daughter came in his office while we were meeting. And it wasn't like we need to be just here, you and I type of meeting. It was like, hey, come over, like, let's chat, let's have a coffee, like, I'll show you the house, I'll show you around, like, you haven't seen the kids in a few years, and it's been like 5 years since I've seen his kids were 5 last time I saw them. So it's been a bit. And he wasn't married when I last saw him. Now he's married and they have 2 kids. So there's been some life changes in his life. And she comes in and she's like, Daddy, 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 I'm so glad you're home. Because he had gotten home right when I got there. He was like, yeah, I'm going to be coming back from the office, but like, I'm going to get there right when you do. So it's all good. And I asked him, I was like, do you want like a couple hours like to decompress? And he was like, oh, no. It's totally fine. Like, I don't need to like decompress. It's you. He didn't get the gist. What I was actually saying was, do you want a couple hours to hang out with the family, be with them for a bit, and then I'll come over? Because you're going from one thing to the next. Guys, it doesn't matter if you were gone for 2 minutes, 1 minute, an hour, a day, a month. Kids are going to want to come and play with you. Like, doesn't matter how long you've been gone. And of course, she's like coming in and he's like, oh, sweetheart, like, do you remember Joe? And she's like, yeah, I do. Look at your muscles is what she said, because I had a tank top on. It made me feel like really uncomfortable. And he's like, sorry, she's really into Superman right now. And like her dad is also like a huge behemoth of a man as well. And so I was like, oh, I'm not Superman. I think your dad is. And she was like, Dad, play with me. And he's like, sweetheart, I've got to chat with Joey right now. And I was like, dude, it's fine. Like, I'm literally don't have anything else planned. So like, take your time. He's like, no, it's okay. He's like, sweetheart, I'll come talk with you in a bit. And we finished talking, and then we go outside, and we're like out in his pool area, and they have this like, he has a driving range in his backyard that goes into the golf course that they live on. I thought that was I was like, can you actually use this? And he said, oh, yeah, we pay a monthly fee, but it goes right onto the green over there. And I was like, I didn't know they offered this. And he was like, oh, they don't. I have to pay more for it. And I said, okay, can I hit off this? And he's like, can you hit straight? Because if you hit that way, you're going to hit hole 10, and there's people golfing right now. And I said, I'm actually not going to swing right now, because I can't promise you that I'm going to hit it straight. I might slice it and go right for that person. And his daughter comes out, and he's like on his phone, and she turns to him. She's like, Daddy, Dad. And she's like grabbing his arm. She's like, please, I want to show you something that I made. Please, it'll take 2 minutes. And he's like, sweetheart, Daddy's doing something. And she said, Dad, you're always on your phone. And he was like, sweetheart, I'll be done in a bit. And he comes over to me, and he's like, man, she really wants my attention. And I was like, yeah, but can I share something with you and just be honest? And he was like, yeah. And I said, she said you're always on your phone. That's what she sees. regardless of what you do, she sees you as always on your phone. I don't know you that way. It's just something I noticed. Man, she asked for 2 minutes. Why don't you go give her 2 minutes? Like, dude, I can entertain myself. You guys literally have like 7,000 square feet of things that I can figure it out. I'll entertain myself. I was an only child. I used to play with rocks. I think I'll be okay in your house. And so he went and hung out with her, and I was just kind of chatting with his wife, and like super, super nice couple, like really just amazing people. And they've really like fought through some battles together. You know, they both used to be like in the fitness industry and were competitors. And when you're wearing a bikini and board shorts and shirtless and, you know, you're lean to the bone and look like a specimen, you're getting a lot of attention. And that caused fringe in their relationship. And they both came together. And her and I were talking about this. And she was like, it's so amazing to see we've come this far because we had to really get rid of so many distractions. And I was talking to her about identity. And I said, do you feel like you had to get rid of like identities and things that you were conditioned for? And she was like, oh, absolutely. She said, in my mind, like I had so many beliefs about men that were competitors, and I typecasted him as that. And then I got to knowing him and started to realize like this is barely a hobby for him. And then I started to realize that he was doing it and paying the money he was to compete because there were certain people that he was trying to meet to do business with. And the only way to get close enough to like actually have those conversations was to be a part of it. The man's brilliant because he's done hundreds of millions of dollars with some of those people that he's met. He's smart, and he met her in the process. And I remember when they were having the conversation about it, and she was like, so, you know, like, I don't like the idea of us competing. He's like, honestly, I'm over it. Like, I've met you. I met the people I needed to meet. I don't plan on doing anymore. And she had never asked him what his thoughts were on it. She thought he wanted to like go pro and make this a career. And he's like, why would I do that? I love Mexican food. I don't want to not eat burritos. And so in that, when it came to the identity, this question is one that I asked him. If your daughter or son were to describe you 10 years from now, what identity do you hope that they name? And when I asked him this, he said, I hope she doesn't name the identity that he was always on his phone and wouldn't play with me because he was too busy. And he was gone for like an hour. We had to like go down there and like, hey, like Joey's about to leave, and he's like, oh yeah, sorry, got tied up. He's literally inside the castle. I come in, he's inside her castle, and he's like, sorry man, I got tied up. And he's like, wait, I can get the roof off, I can get out. Cause like he literally is inside it and can barely, he's shoulder to shoulder inside this thing. But she said, Daddy, get inside the castle. And so he lifted the whole roof of it off and got in it. And he's like, wait, I can say bye. Let me just get out of this 1 second. It's a process. And she's like, Dad, you're breaking my castle. And he's like, well, now I'm Godzilla. It was great. But in this, I want you to look at this future frame lens. And when you describe yourself 10 years from now, what are the words they use? Are they calm, clear, relentless, loving, grounded? What are the habits that they see? Do they see emotional control? Do they see a morning routine? Do they see tough conversations? And what are the decisions that they'd feel? Do they feel the sacrifice that you're making? Do they see the service? Do they recognize your standards? And I want you to write this future testimonial to yourself. 10 years from now, my family will know me as the man who, and share 4 to 5 sentences in that, because that is how you step into claiming the future frame. You actually polarize. What's the identity that you hope your children name? And if you're in a place where you don't have a lot of presence with your children, maybe you hope that 10 years from now, they'll name an identity of, I have questions. that you will have dutiful answers for. Because if the now that you're in right now isn't where you desire to be, I have a lot of men that are navigating some really challenging stuff and aren't having as much time with their kids as they desire and they deserve. Be proud of the decisions you make right now. Because this is called retroactive gratification. There will come a time that they will ask questions. Be proud of the answers you have to those questions when the time comes. That's a part of being attached to the future vision. I was chatting with someone yesterday, and it was about business, and he was like, but how do you keep going? Like knowing that, this thing may not work. And I said, what are you talking about? And he was like, well, how do you keep going knowing that, what if you don't get where you want to be? I said, well, brother, you're asking me about life. You're not just asking me about business right now. Anything you do in life, you do not, with no whim or guarantee. Bro, you could get struck by lightning in the middle of a field and that's it. You could have some freak accident happen and that's it. You go on to the next place. And I don't know what the answer is there. But to do things with the expectation of this is what's going to happen, there are no promises, there are no guarantees. But what we do know is this: we have choice today. You have choice today. I was watching this video recently about time and the quantum field and quantum realm and how there is no time. Time doesn't exist. Because they look at time as the distance from here to here. We're actually looking at it wrong because time is not linear. There is not forward and backwards. There is only a single loop in this moment. And so what they realized was there is no future, there is no past, there's right now happening. And so it just leads me to believe, and I'm not going to expand on the things in quantum field and quantum theory and all of that. You can do your own research. But it leads me to this thought. If life is a byproduct of choice, and time is this thing that's effervescent and everlasting, then the decision that you make right now and how you decide to feel and how you decide to show up will lead you to the place that you desire to be. But you get to make a choice to step into that today. The second part that I want to give you is when you're writing this letter, I'm only going to have you do the after letter. I don't want you to do the before letter. I want you to write the things that you struggle to accept and how you're accepting them now. I want you to speak with clarity, standard, and leadership. You guys have all already done stripping the old identity. This is time to lay the foundation and forge the path for what's to come. Because naming the new self ignites embodiment. This is not a thought exercise. This is your first step of truly becoming sovereign and stepping into the man that you've always been and always were. You just had to refine the parts of yourself that you lost along the way from trying to climb the proverbial ladder to the heights of everything you thought you wanted to be. And this is where it begins. It's not by adding more, but it's by subtracting what was never yours to carry. You've worn roles for decades that were built to keep you liked, safe, or small. But legacy doesn't come from performance. It comes from presence. And today, we're ending that false self, and we begin the forged one. Don't perform tonight. Lead. Don't wait to be chosen. Declare. Don't ask who you've been. Show who you're becoming. And guys, I appreciate you all being here. This was part 1 of the 12-week series of Forge. And the next training is going to be master your state and lead your life. Today, I want you to sit with, who am I? Who are you really? Who are you outside of the things? Because when you begin to step into who am I truly, when you know who you are, you can see more clearly. And clarity will always trump persuasion. You won't have to persuade yourself or convince yourself you are or what you are not. You'll know because your identity is not attached to things, titles, or stuff. It's who you are inside. My grandma used to say this: the world isn't outside of you. You only think it is. You have everything you need inside of you. Never forget that. And she's right, because she used to tell me that if someone else has something you want, there's nothing different about them and you. You're both human. You both have a brain. And so she would commonly pour into me and sow into me and say, the world isn't outside of you. And I never understood that until I got older. We have everything we need inside us already. You are already complete. You just need to realize that. And that's a part of what she was saying, was she needed identity. She needed me to know the identity that I was stepping into and that I was already complete. And that's the greatest gift. And when you can lean into identity over this false narrative of who you want the world to believe you to be, you get a level of comfort that you can spend time with yourself, by yourself, productively, and recognize that you don't need approval, you don't need validation, you don't need to do things to receive love, because you're already enough. You always have been, you always were.